Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to share with you a new template that I made. Now I'm calling it template 25, and the only reason I'm calling it template 25 is because that's the next number in the sequence. So no rhyme or reason other than it's the next number. And here I have an example of the flower, and I wanted to model it after a dahlia. However, the dahlia that I have on my channel, I do have one that's one of my most popular videos. However, that one took a long time. There's a lot of pieces, so I thought it would be great to get a flower template similar to the dahlia that didn't take so much work. So this is the template. Now I didn't want to call it my dahlia template because I think that the shape that's used here can be used for different flowers depending on how you make it, so I didn't want to box it in and say that the only thing you can do with this template is make a dahlia. So just to start, I will go through the petals that I used and make one really quick. I'm just going to keep this a short video. The idea was to try to make a flower like this in this style very quickly, so that's what we'll do. So for this flower, what I'm using here is a 6-inch wide circle. So in this template, I'm going by height measurements, and that's only because it's easier to size these petals by height rather than by width, because it's a taller, skinnier petal, so it's easier to increase sizes by height rather than by width. You get more petals that way, you get better increments. So this is a 5.5-inch tall petal. This is a 5-inch tall petal, 4.5, 4-inch tall, and then 3.5-inch tall. Now I chose to do 8 petals of the 5.5 tall petal, 8 petals of the 5-inch tall petal, and then I went down to 6 petals of this 4.5-inch tall petal. I did 4 of these 4-inch tall petals, and then only 3 or 4, so I did 3 of this 3.5-inch tall petal. So it goes down as you get to the smaller petals, because here you'll see that there's less petals, there's less room for it, so you don't need as many petals when you get to the center. And so with this petal, I tried not to make too much prep with the flower. So I wanted this flower style, but I wanted to get there quickly, so to speak. So with a bone folder, what I do is I start in the middle and then I start creasing the petal. So I do this fairly quickly. I just want a slight crease like that. And then what I do is I take a glue stick. So here's a glue stick. And I put it towards the middle of the petal. And then I sort of press the glue stick in to create a crease down the middle. So my glue stick is a mini-size glue stick. So if you're using a full-size glue stick, it may be too big. But you can try it. See what type of curl you like in your petals. You can also use a dowel, a wooden dowel, some sort of rod, or a pencil. I think that's similar width. And then all I do in order to finish prepping this petal is I take, so that you sort of bisected the petal with the way that you created a crease down here. So somewhere in the middle of this petal on the bottom, you want to fold the flaps sort of together, or the corners together and up. You kind of create a V shape on the bottom. So what I do then is I take my finger and then I hold it in place so that I can fold these two pieces together, and it creates sort of a cone on the bottom. And then all I do then is just glue it in place. So I add a little bit of glue. If you add too much, it may squeeze out, and you don't want that all over your fingers. And then I sort of roll that piece that I put some glue on over it, and it creates this cone. So then you want to do this with all of your petals. And this is probably the hardest part, just the prepping of the petals, and so it will take a little bit of time. Okay, so from here, all we need to do is just glue the petals to the flower to complete this. So for the base, what you can do is you can use a octagon if you'd like. However, I find that a circle is best, especially if you want to change the number of petals. So I wanted to do 8 for the first layer. However, you can use less. You can use 6 if you'd like. And it also depends on what size base you're using, as well as the petal. So if you have a smaller base but larger petal, you may want to use less per layer. So I like to glue mine first in this sort of shape, this cross shape. That way I know where to place these petals here. That just helps with placement of the petals. So now that we have our first layer down, gluing the second layer is just the same, although shifted. We want to glue these petals in between the petals from the previous layer. So the first layer of petals was very easy to glue. However, the second one we want to be a little more mindful of where we're gluing it. And what I like to do sometimes is just take the tip, that little bottom piece, and then just squish it down flat. Add some glue to that point there, and then place the petal. And that way I can press down on that tip to glue to the base. We can't just glue the petal flat as we did before because of the way that these petals sit fairly up high, so that if we add just glue to the bottom and stuck it on, it may not stick. So having that little portion here flattened helps stick it to the base. And you'll want to glue the petals very close to each other. There's a lot of ways to make this flower. You can add more petals if you like, using a larger base and spacing out the petals differently. However, I think this is one that you can make very quickly and easily. So this is the example that I wanted to use first for this tutorial video. But obviously you can add another layer of this size petal all around if you like. And sometimes what you may need to do is hold the petals down so that the glue bonds better and cools off. If you just press it really quickly, the glue may come up, or the petal may come up and may not glue properly. Okay, so now we have our 2 layers. You can see here that if you wanted to, you can add a second layer of this size petals to fill in these gaps. I kind of like it this way, so I've done it this way. But I always like to give options. So the next layer of petals, we have 6 of them. We have 2 less than before because now the space in here is getting smaller and there's not as much room to glue all these petals. So again, I'm going to flatten the tip and then just distribute the flower petals all around. And try to make it sort of an even distribution around the center. So you won't be able to really glue the petals in between the petals from the previous layer, but that's okay. And here is where you'll want to keep holding on to that tip of the petal where you wanted to glue, because this time there's a lot of resistance from the petals below it. So it's easier to make sure that your petals are glued. After you put the glue on them, just take 5 seconds to hold on to the petal and then move on. That way later it won't fall apart or come apart. So I made a dahlia earlier, maybe a couple years ago, for my wedding wall, and that video was really popular. It was in really easy shape, sort of a kite-shaped piece. And since then I've been wanting to make a new dahlia, an actual template for the dahlia. And so I'm glad to finally be doing it. So again, I want to press hard in the middle to make sure that it glues. And if you have sensitive fingers, you may want to just use like a tool to hold down that petal if it's too hot for you. And the petals that will go from here, we want them to sort of stick straight up so that it kind of fills in the space. And this is easy, I think, because that way you don't have to make any sort of center for it. So I feel that this is a nice and easy flower. I think the other dahlia that I had was, although I think it was very pretty when made, it was definitely really labor intensive. There was like 72 petals and you had to roll them and then glue them together. So that one, while pretty, I think this one's a better option to save time, especially now during the holidays when it's super busy. Okay. So I forgot to mention, but I had 4 of these petals here of this size. And then the last layer I have 3 petals. And I'm just going to be sticking those right in the center of this. Okay, so your last layer of petals, I like to just flatten the petal completely. Or I'm sorry, the tip of the petal completely. It's okay if it doesn't really have that curl that we put into it. Okay, so from here, we just have 1 more petal left. Put that right in the middle. And then there you have it. This is my dahlia template, or template 25. I think you might be able to better see the petals with this color than this one. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.